Hey everyone, Jeff here from Films at Home. Thanks for coming back to the podcast today. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening along on your favorite podcast app, I appreciate all of you. Today's interview is a really cool one because I was made aware of this project on Twitter, and I don't remember who made me aware of it, and I'll have to give them a shout out if I can find it. But we're going to be talking to Eric Hatch, and he is the co-founder of Beyond Video, which is a nonprofit video store that operates out of Baltimore. It is an actual video rental store in 2022. They founded this in 2018, and I'll talk with Eric about how it came together. But they have about 26,000 DVD, Blu-ray, and VHS titles, which were all put together by donations. It's entirely volunteer run. Nobody is making any money off this. They work for free, and they operate this awesome video store in the heart of Baltimore, which is just such a unique concept and unique idea that I had to talk to Eric and get his thoughts on what's going on and how maybe others could replicate this in other cities, and just really the cool project he's doing here to bring accessibility to thousands of films that aren't available on streaming, are hard to get, and making it available for a very reasonable monthly fee, and not having any late fees or return deadlines, just letting people enjoy film. So we're going to talk to Eric here for about 45-50 minutes, and then I'll be back at the end to chat with you guys. So sit back and relax, enjoy this interview, and I'll catch you at the end. We're here with Eric from Beyond Video. Eric, thanks for joining us today for the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Super excited to have you on here. Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. This should be a lot of fun because I have never heard of anybody doing what your team is doing. So I guess we should just start off and, let's tell the people what Beyond Video is all about. Like, how did you get started and what's the mission here?
Yeah, I mean, Beyond Video is a not-for-profit video library, essentially a video store, like a video rental store like we used to have in the not-so-distant past. But it's reimagined as a all-volunteer nonprofit enterprise. So basically, we've done away with a la carte rentals and late fees, and we've just built this huge library of DVDs, Blu-rays, and VHS that for a monthly membership fee, people can basically treat as a library. So, people pay either $12 or $20 a month to support our project, and then get different benefits to rent from the 26,000 movies that we have accumulated.
26,000.
Yeah, man. And we opened in 2018 with a little less than 9,000. So we've essentially tripled the collection since we've been open, which, I'm kind of a numbers nerd. So I'm pretty excited about that.
And that's all just donations from the community, or, do you get stuff sent in from all over the world, or?
Yeah, I mean, stuff comes in from all over, stuff from outside North America. We are a little picky on because, not all of our customers can do all region, this or that, PAL,
sure.
and that sort of thing. But yeah, we do have supporters from outside the U.S. who are really tasteful in what they send us as well. But yeah, so basically the whole project started, we were all associated one way or another with another video store in Baltimore called Video Americaine. This was around from the 80s until, about 2014 or so. And you can see it at John Waters' movie Serial Mom, actually. There's a pretty good VHS-related murder in there. So this was a place, I was a manager of it in the early 2000s. One of the other people in Beyond, Kevin, was the manager up until it closed around 2014. So it was a really important place to us. And initially, when the owner, who was dealing with some health issues and slogging down from Delaware to run a store in Baltimore that was seeing kind of diminishing returns, he kind of announced that, he was closing it down. And with very little time and resources, we kind of tried to basically buy it and save it. And that didn't work out, unfortunately. But we licked our wounds and started a new collection from scratch. And as much as I miss Video Americaine, I think it actually worked out really nicely because there are a lot of video stores there are not a lot of video stores, but the video stores that are still around are struggling. You know, there are places that people know they should support. They feel guilty for not supporting, but they don't support them enough for them to be in robust shape by and large.
Sure.
Whereas this new thing that's clearly not a video rental store, it's a new collection, new location started from scratch with this new business model. It just works better for us because even customers who came in every day at the old video store, 10 years ago, know that there's a different, we're not making money here. We're putting, we're all, in fact, gave a large parts of our own personal collections and we're for free and put in money when needed. So it's a labor of love. That's the only way to put it. And people really respond in kind. Just really appreciative that we're even around.
So do you find that a lot of the customers from the old video store are now coming back in and really having like that awesome nostalgic experience again?
Yeah, we do see that a lot. But what's even more, and I don't want to say more exciting to me because it's all equally exciting, but like what's a pleasant surprise to me and an exciting surprise is how many young people are coming.
That's awesome.
This is video rental place isn't where teenagers are hanging out in 2022, but not, mid-20s. Yes. Like a lot of our members are, students from art school or from grad school at Johns Hopkins University, which is near us.
Okay.
Or just like, people in the music and film scene in town, which is one of the more robust scenes in the country these days, simply because Baltimore is still pretty affordable. It's like everywhere else, there are condos and it's, not as cheap as it used to be, but things change slower in Baltimore than other places. And artists and people who are, build their lives around the art or music can still afford to be here, which is really helps us.
Yeah, I was gonna ask sort of what the demos were, because I think it is the type of place that I could see myself being, if I was in college or, in my mid-20s or even now. I mean, I haven't cracked 30 yet. I got a couple months left.
Congrats on that.
Thanks. But I could totally see myself going there and getting this membership because, I miss that. And I assume like I was reading the site, like you actually, it's staffed. Like you can go in and talk movies with people, get recommendations.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And that's a huge piece of like what's missing with Netflix. I don't want my recommendations from an algorithm necessarily. I want them from somebody who I can have a conversation with and they'll go, hey, I get you. Here's a movie you should watch. And that's how you discover new stuff. And that's missing from society. So
absolutely. I mean, I, like a lot of people who worked at video stores back in the day, like I went on to work in film and in criticism. I've been a film and music critic and programmed for Maryland Film Festival for many, many years. So
very cool.
I have a pool of knowledge to pull from and my own taste, but also I'm really good at pitching things to people, and finding, okay, tell me two of your favorite movies or tell me what you're in the mood for. And I can kind of triangulate from there in a way that like algorithms can't. And the other thing to remember about film algorithms is that the streaming landscape is so splintered, right? So like Netflix might very well know that your favorite director is, let's say, Stanley Kubrick, but if they don't have any Kubrick films, they're not going to be able to show you anything,
Right.
So they may have a lot of information, but they want to show you Netflix product. I mean, that's all they're going to show you, And unlike Spotify, which, I'm not promoting Spotify at all, but like there are music streaming services that are pretty hard to stump, like you can find records that aren't on there, but they're fairly few and far between. And between a pay service and YouTube and Bandcamp, you can access the music you want to hear. Whereas with film, you might need a dozen subscriptions to match what we have under one roof.
Right. And even those subscriptions, the depth of a lot of them is not there, is what I find. So like, depending on what you're looking for, you need Netflix and then you need the Criterion channel. But even that comes down to licensing and they don't have everything. And there's, like you said, there's 26,000 in your collection. I mean, I'd be super interested to like cross-reference that with how many are actually available somewhere on a service. And I bet the number would be high that they're not.
Yeah, I mean, I think people who try to crunch those numbers get exhausted and stop, because I've challenged people to do it before.
It's a lot. I'm not recommending it.
No, I mean, but it's a useful exercise because, I think the whole myth of the internet and streaming services is that everything's available at a push of a button,
Yeah.
And lots of things are available for a very high price. And you also have to be an expert in the thing that, like, a nerd like me might be interested in what distributor owns what film, but the average cinema lover, shouldn't have to spend time figuring out, okay, I need to go to Paramount Plus for this, that's not fun.
No, and you're right. And that is where people always compare. And I have this argument. I mean, I'm not by any means blind to the fact that, like, yes, streaming has won the larger war. Yes, people use streaming. I get that. It's not going anywhere, but they always use the music example. And that is so different because, like you said, you can pretty much, I mean, if you have Spotify, minus a few people who have pulled their stuff off, I mean, you've got pretty much everything. And if you don't have it there, it's on YouTube or, somewhere free online. And It's a totally different ball game. And the only way to get that is either somebody in streaming has to become the Google and just take it all, which is never usually a good thing for creativity, or you have to go to a video store that there's no licensing, there's no alliance to, we're only going to show you our video store's content, and that's what we're going to push the hardest. There's none of that. It's a neutral source, and that is truly that's missing in a lot of places in the world. Is just a neutral source that can give you an opinion without anything behind it. And that's what I miss the most. And so I'm going to definitely have to I'm going to have to stop in and check it out, because there's nothing like that. We have Bull Moose up here.
Oh yeah.
As a video store, and you can buy things, and they are pretty good with recommendations. They have people who know their stuff. But the whole like rental, like library aspect of it is also very cool, that you don't have like that $20 commitment to blind buy something, and you can try something out for, $12 to $20 a month. I missed that. That's a great
absolutely.
way to discover new things without burning your wallet.
Yeah. And, if you're a slipcover collector, we probably can't help you. But if you want to rent the, Bluray that Vinegar Syndrome or Severin put out, and figure out if it's something you want to buy with a slipcover, we've got you. I mean, we carry, just a wide variety of stuff, and recently expanded into the last like sort of unfinished room in our space to build a whole room just for the horror and cult sections, which is exciting for me because that's, kind of the sweet spot for me. I'm very forgiving of a bad, cult or horror movie if I'm in the right mood. So.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I've always felt like the video store is where that stuff thrives too. Like maybe I'm biased because I'm in the same boat. I'd go and look at the cover art and be like, ooh, that one looks messed up. I'm taking that one off the shelf and taking it home. But I feel like the horror and the cult stuff really does well in those environments. So it's kind of cool. You're setting up a whole room. I am curious, like, what do you see that in your rentals? If you're tracking the rentals, like what's being taken out, does it skew one way or another?
Yeah, I mean, about once a year I compile a list. Well, a couple lists. One I usually do is the top new releases of the year at the end of the year. But then about midway through each year, I just update our like all-time top renting titles. And well, just for starters, Mandy is our top renting film of all time. It was a popular new release around the time that we opened Beyond Video, so that helped, sure. But it's just an enduring favorite and just a word of mouth. It's a bad shit film, right? So there's always going to be a new person getting into film who wants to see Nicolas Cage go full cage. But yeah, I mean. I don't know, like I'm wearing a Possession t-shirt that's in our top 10 renters.
Really?
but then also Uncle Boon Me, the Thai art house film, that's in our top 10 rentals. We have all the Marvel films, DC, Star Wars, what have you. And people do rent those as well, but 10 to 1, it's the smaller niche films that rent for us. We bought. I'm trying to think, like even the Batman, which I thought with Pattinson and good reviews might do better for us than the average superhero film, but
Sure.
I think the Blu-rays rented twice and the DVDs rented twice, whereas,
Right.
something like New York Ninja, we had 2 copies of that and they were flying off the shelf, nonstop.
That's awesome. So it is really still those niche, like, so you must have a lot of the Vinegar Syndrome, the Severin, the Synapse, the Arrow
Yeah.
Video stuff,
All
Show
that. Yeah.
Factory. Yeah.
Yeah. And Criterion. I mean, Criterion really
Yeah.
is something that gets people in the door too. And, referencing something you said earlier, the Criterion channel is a great service, at least relative to streaming services, but no streaming service has the same content forever, right? Like,
Right.
you see their posts on social media, watch this title if you want to catch it because it's leaving at the end of the month. And,
Yeah.
unless our rarest DVD in the world, someone snaps in half, which I'll come to their house if they do that. We're not getting rid of any movies. So you have access to them as long as we're able to keep the lights on.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the physical. I mean, you're right. I'm not. Criterion Channel has lots of great stuff, but they lose the rights to things all the time. But as long as obviously it's on your shelf and it's a Criterion DVD or Blu-ray, unless someone snaps it, it's not going anywhere.
Exactly.
So it's always accessible. It's all about accessibility, and I think I saw that in your mission statement too on the website, which I appreciate. Like, there is a need for these movies to be more accessible, not necessarily the Batman and the Avengers, which are fairly accessible to most people in one way or another. But the stuff that could get lost without people like you or the boutique, Blu-ray labels that are putting these things out, they're not super accessible. And then even then, how many people have $50 to pay for a Vinegar Syndrome release? I love their stuff. I understand why it costs so much, and I pick and choose. But there's a reason why. They've got a bottom line. But the accessibility that a rental gives you is just like totally missing. Never mind video stores, period, and being able to buy stuff, but just renting for $12 a month. You could. I mean, how many movies could you go through? You watch a couple a week. I mean, you can get yourself 8-10 movies, $1 a piece. I mean, you can't beat that. You can't beat that anywhere. It's cheaper than Netflix. So that accessibility is important. And I wonder in the community, was there obviously wasn't much accessibility within the community, and being a college age kids, it sounds like there's a lot of customers in that age range who don't have disposable income. So I can see why it works, and I really like the message behind it. It's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of self-published an article about tips for anyone else who wants to try to do something similar, and a few projects are kind of in the very tentative stages of seeing if they can do it in other cities. I mean, the key thing you need is a maniac like me or Kevin in the collective who not only will work for free, but delights in it, all the, one of the things that I sort of coordinated was when our collection was in the early stages, just trying to brainstorm every possible movie we didn't have that I knew was, released on physical media and that someone might have for us. And just, just having a little bit of an audience on Twitter for Beyond Video, but also for myself, I just kind of blasted out a shared Google Doc that listed these movies. And in 2017, that was like a 30-page document, and now it's down to like 4 or 5. So people like, say, okay, and at first maybe we didn't have Rocky 3, so it doesn't really take a lot for someone, whether or not they really believe strongly in our project, to take a DVD of Rocky 3 and put a few stamps on it, so
Right.
there are people who send us, huge generous boxes, and there are people who are just like, this seems fun and helps me get rid of a dusty old thing.
Yeah, well, that is. I was gonna ask. I had a couple questions, and you kind of touched on two there. One I wanted to ask was if you think this could be replicated in other cities, because I'm just thinking, I don't know Baltimore well, but the way I haven't been in, I don't know how long. I think I drove through as like a teenager on our way to Florida, but
Sure.
I'm thinking of Cambridge by me,
Yeah.
Boston, Cambridge, Somerville. They do and you mentioned the film festivals, and it immediately got me thinking, well, there's guys who run an independent theater chain within that Cambridge, Somerville, Boston area. They run the Independent Film Festival Boston, and they have this huge community, and a lot of it's volunteers who run the film festival and people who are just passionate. And it immediately got me thinking, like, they could totally do something like this in a place like Somerville, where you have Tufts University, you have Harvard right off the train, you've got BU, you've got all these places local that I'm sure have interested people. And it's just, it's Cambridge, and that area is just artsy. It's got film people. It's got the right audience. So it's interesting you say you've kind of like, you got some stuff in the works. I don't know if that's one of them, but I feel like I need to send an email after this and tell them to talk to you.
Yeah, man. I mean, I love talking about the project and encouraging other people to do similar. Every city has its own unique obstacles in terms of, Cambridge. I imagine rent is a lot more expensive in Baltimore, but also
just a bit.
But your potential audience is also a lot bigger, and
yeah,
the opportunities for partnerships are there too. I don't know how well trafficked they are, but a lot of the Alamo draft houses are putting out little collections, or in a few cases, absorbing the collections of out of business video stores and kind of making them available.
Yeah.
And I'm like of two minds of it. It feels a little gimmicky to me. I don't know how many people are really availing themselves of it, or, if it's, kind of relegating these collections to being a thing of the past that people don't access. I don't live in a market that has an Alamo, so I haven't experienced how they're doing it yet. But ultimately, anything that's promoting home video culture and keeping a collection like that together, I'm in favor of.
Yeah, there was there was a big video store, I think, in New York that I think they were going to close their doors. I can't remember the name.
So you might be thinking of the Kim's video collection.
Yeah. Yes.
Which, yeah. So this is a legendary sort of saga, and they closed maybe 10 or 12 years ago. But the owner, Mr. Kim, sort of put it out there that anyone who would take the entire collection, including something like 50,000 VHS tapes, could have it for free as long as they promised to make it publicly available to the public, or like in good faith. And there's an article actually by Karina Longworth, that now known as the podcaster from You Must Remember This, where she followed up on that because someone did take the collection and it ended up in Italy, and without spoilers, like there's possible mafia involvement and strange stuff happened. But that article is a great long read. But I do believe now that one of the Alamos in New York, maybe in the financial district actually, that just opened, did absorb that collection. Although I do know some VHS aficionados who were really excited and found that, at least so far, it's the DVDs that are available, which, for a certain kind of nerd is going to be disappointing.
Yeah, no, I think that there's, that is the one I was thinking of, though. You're totally right, because you brought up Alamo, and I thought I had read that they were taking that on, and it was supposedly like one of the largest collections in the world.
Yep.
But there's been a resurgence in VHS, which is funny, because I don't know. like the players are not super accessible.
They're quite expensive.
Yeah, and you used to be able to scoop them up at a thrift store for nothing, and now I haven't seen one on shelves because I go in all the time looking for. I would love to get myself a DVD VHS combo that has an HDMI. That's sort of my like dream piece of technology, which is now super expensive online. I probably should have bought one like 10 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very particular moment there where we're sort of like acknowledging three different eras of technology. And
I'm being very picky.
No. I respect it.
But I know they're out there, and I kick myself because I used to see them in thrift stores, and I totally could have had them for $5. And now I don't even think they hit the shelves. A place like Goodwill, they're going to throw that online and try to get money out of it because they go for crazy amounts of money now. And I did want to ask, like, because you guys still carry VHS tapes, like, I guess what percentage of the collection is VHS, and are you seeing those being rented at the same frequency as HD media? Right.
Yeah, it's a good question. We I mean, I would say roughly the split of the collection is maybe about, close to 20,000 DVDs, close to 6,000 Blu-rays, and about 500 VHS tapes. And what we've done, with just a rule of thumb in sort of refining and distilling the VHS collection is if we kind of consider DVD the default format. It's the one that we think everyone can play, right? You might not have a Blu-ray player, and you probably don't have a VHS player. So if something is available on DVD, we take the VHS off the shelf, unless there's something super special about it, a different cut or, just, fell in love with the art or something like that. We take it out and then consider the DVD that piece. So over the year, when we first opened, I think we had Tootsie on VHS, so, no one was renting Tootsie on VHS. But now, just because we've crowdsourced such a wonderful collection, it tends to be pretty rare stuff. That said, there are also a few boutique labels that are putting out like small run VHS in 2022, and we do have a few of those here and there as well. But no, they don't circulate in the same numbers. Like when we take a fairly common title out of circulation on VHS because we got the DVD, we might sell it for $1 or $2 used. And what's interesting to me is almost all our VHS collectors are like 19 or 20. They're some of the same sort of like hipster demographic that likes collecting like old audio cassettes or like indie or noise band audio cassettes. That's kind of the demographic for our used VHS. As far as rentals, I'm trying to think of some of the things that might turn over a lot because there's certain like experimental films or local films that just were never ported over. We do have a fair amount of like old big box horror tapes as well, which, as we were talking about earlier, really do fire up the imagination. But I mean, at any given moment, we have between 500 and 600 things checked out, and maybe 10 of those are VHS. So.
Okay. Yeah. So the VHS is really some of the more rare, unique pieces, which I'd love to see what's there, because that's what's so exciting to me is the diminishing returns of each format, where VHS had, I don't know how many tapes, hundreds of thousands, DVD had maybe 50,000 DVD releases, Blu-ray had 20,000, and now 4K has, a couple thousand, and it's gotten tighter each time. And there's so much that those old obscure VHS tapes are becoming like highly collectible. Like I wouldn't doubt, I mean, do you know if you have any that are like just insane, like, wow, if we put this on eBay, like it would go nuts? It's the super rare piece.
Yeah, we try not to know too much about that, just because, like, I would never want to sell something. If I saw something going for $1,000, I might be tempted, because we could buy a lot of DVDs with that $1,000.
Totally.
but yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of some of the rarer pieces that we might have, and a lot of the stuff we put out is also kind of like oddball stuff,
Yeah.
um, skateboarder wrestling tapes that we're certain never got ported over, or trying to think of some other sort of surefire things we have on VHS. There is a old Baltimore kind of like shot in 60 millimeter experimental film. I believe it's called Talking to Strangers from the late 80s, which had a little notoriety because Jean-Luc Godard, for some reason, said it was one of his favorite films.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen the film, and I wouldn't rate it that highly myself. But, just things like that like the world would have forgotten if we didn't have it on a shelf there.
Yeah, that's awesome to have like that archive, because I'd never heard of that. I feel like I have lots of movies, and I'm like, well, I only have like 3,000, and you guys have 26,000. So like, I'm clearly just scratching the surface here when it comes to how much is out there.
For sure. But correct me if I'm wrong, but you're probably not trying to create the illusion of owning everything. There are probably movies, like, I don't know if you like Forrest Gump or hate Forrest Gump, but there's probably a movie you hate where you're like, I don't want that in my house. Whereas,
it's interesting because when I started buying movies, I started in my parents had a DVD. We had VHS collections. We had DVD. Like when I was younger, teenager, and then I got into Blu-ray when I was like 20, and it was like 2012 it would have been. So it wasn't super early. Like I kind of missed the boat on the early stuff, but I quickly got to a point where I was just like buying everything. And I was like, and this was in my head. I'm like, I'm going to own everything. I'm going to have an archive, because when I'm 50 years old, I want somebody to be able to come to my house and get that obscure thing on DVD or Blu-ray that never made it and is gone. But I kind of quickly realized that's insane. And I actually just did a pretty big purge and like curated the collection. I got rid of probably, I don't know, I sold a lot of like 250 discs to another collector who was trying to kickstart his collection, and sold them for like $1 or $2 a piece. Which was awesome, like to be able to kickstart somebody. But I put some away. I traded in a bunch at Bull Moose at the local video store. I donated some to the Navy project I work on. So I got rid of probably a good 500 or 600 just in the last month. And you're right, it honestly felt kind of good. There was a bit of a relief, because like I have to realize I am not a video store. I am not an archive, as much as I'd love to be. And I have a house with a family that needs this space, and I can't turn this into Blockbuster on Main Street. Like, this is my house. So yeah, I was one of those people, and like very recently have not been that person.
I mean, I understand the urge, I used to really hoard CDs and still have a very large vinyl collection, but I do find that when I sort of, with whatever I might collect, whether it be books or records, that like, I do get a better feeling from like a really sort of tight, like, this really says who I am, even if my taste in music is really voracious, something like, if I could get my collection down to like the 100 records that excited me the most, that would be super awesome. And like, I totally, on the other hand, understand the urge to buy every movie. I mean, we're essentially trying to do that, or as I often say, to create the illusion that we have everything. We're trying to anticipate all the things people might ask for and have them before they ask for them. And that said, people asking for a title and us discovering we not have it is the way we find the holes, and
right.
keep updating that wish list. And and that reminded me of a question that you had earlier, like the back catalog of our everything except the new releases essentially is just all through donation. But the membership donations that we receive from every member go to keep the lights on and pay the bills as far as utilities and stuff, and rent, of course. but then we are able to order new releases. And so we do try to, we don't devote as much space to new releases as like a Blockbuster or a Hollywood video would have by a long shot.
Sure.
But, for like an art house popular film, so something like French Dispatch, we probably had maybe 5 DVDs and 5 Blu-rays circulating, and, right now something like The Northman or Licorice Pizza would be our more popular titles.
That's interesting. So it really isn't, even when the big Marvel movie hits, it's still the PTA movie or the new Scorsese or something that's a little bit more.
Yeah. Titan, we read a lot of that.
I loved that. I just watched that recently because just word of mouth recommendations. Like, I'm sure that's how it got picked up there, but they were like, look, the lady in the car. And I was like, okay, I got to see this. I got to see it.
Totally. And as much as I sort of talk trash about streaming services, like, I think what we're finding, it's not that our membership base doesn't like the Batman or doesn't like the Mark. Some people probably hate those things, but some people, want to rent a Fassbender movie and want to rent Avengers, but they're more likely to have accessed things like that elsewhere.
Right.
They don't really rely on us for that so much, by and large.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Cause that stuff that's in your face. Like, you can't miss, is there anybody who doesn't know of Spider-Man No Way Home? Like, I think that I think every person on the planet has heard of it at this point. They've pushed it everywhere, and it's super accessible. And you can also just walk into a Target, Walmart, grocery store sometimes for some of these, and there's the DVD sitting there because it's so widespread. And you're never going to get that with French Dispatch or Titan or right. Good luck finding those in any retail store that doesn't focus specifically on media. That's the only way you're ever going to find those on disc, or you find them online pretty much direct from distributors. So it is. I think you're right. It's like, I wouldn't be surprised now that I think about it. Like, the stuff that is more accessible, why would you rent it versus the stuff that isn't, that you could get your hands on in at this unique location that nobody else has. So that's funny. Like, your top 10 list was very surprising too. Just some of the ones you mentioned. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah. House, the 70s Japanese film that Criterion has, that's in our top 10.
It's an insane movie.
Things like that, I will say, sort of as a asterisk to talking about multiplex movies, there are some movies that maybe didn't fully find their audience in theaters, like X, the Ty West film, sort of came and went too quick, and we can't keep that on the shelf. And even Ambulance, like the Michael Bay film, that rents fairly well. Like, it's kind of a few people are like, it's a heist movie, even if you don't like Michael Bay's usual thing. There's some fun here, So we're just like video stores always did. We're sort of where word of mouth really lands. Movies spend, except for the franchise films, spend less and less times in theater, and whereas almost everything lands in beyond video, unless it's something that like Netflix or Amazon are being dicks about.
Right, I know, and there's a lot of that.
There's plenty, but we have our ways.
Yeah, well, and luckily the guys who do stuff for Netflix, like Scorsese will do The Irishman, like if they have the pull, they usually make sure it'll come out. Like, they're not going to miss that opportunity to put things out. And Criterion's actually done a nice job of getting the rights to a bunch of Netflix stuff recently.
Yeah, they got Okja coming out in a couple days, I think.
Was Sound of Metal Netflix?
Sound of Metal was just announced. I think that might be an Amazon. But,
I think that was Amazon. Yeah, so they've been kind of scooping the streaming, which is nice. I'm glad somebody's doing it. I'm sure it's not easy, and they're paying a pretty penny to get access, but it is nice because those are the movies that deserve that attention, and probably were even underrated on streaming, even though they were originals. Sure,
and also films that might highlight the advantages of a home video format, where there can be commentary tracks, where there can be short films or bonus features attached. some streaming services do try to offer those things, but I don't think the engagement is the same. And certainly no film gets online the deluxe treatment that a really nice, like, double Blu-ray disc from Criterion or Vinegar Syndrome would get.
Yeah, no chance. And it's always interesting to me too, how the numbers for streaming, when they look at, like, because you look at this in my YouTube videos too, and you look at retention, and I just think about, like, how many movies that I've committed to, like, put a disc in and sit down and watch have I pulled out 40% of the way through.
Yeah.
You don't usually. I mean, it would have to be horrendous to get up and do that. You typically sit it out, and sometimes they surprise you by the end. And it is, and in Netflix, where you have, like, this constant, or it's not just Netflix, but everywhere you have this constant feed of entertainment, and it's like, I didn't like this. I'm 30 minutes in. This sucks. Okay, I'm going to click back, and they're going to throw 10 more thumbnails in my face and get me to watch something else. And I might do 10 minutes of this movie. And then Netflix will say they got 300 million people watching it. But I'm like, well, how many people actually watched the whole thing? Or how many people just clicked on it because it looked cool and spent 5 minutes and then shut it off?
No, I think that's a really interesting perspective, because it just sort of clarified, I always like to say that at a good video rental store or library like us, like, browsing is fun, whether you're someone who wants to pick the brains of the clerk, or whether you're someone who likes to read the back of every, case by yourself, that's fun. And, the flip side of that coin, I think, is that browsing on a streaming service is exhausting and depressing, and too often you settle. But I think what you just clarified for me is that the browsing isn't done when you're watching. When you pick something on a streaming service, it's still in the back of your head, like, I'm not really committed to this. And that's
right.
That's maybe a reflection of the diminishing returns of the content you might have gotten from that service. But part of your brain is still scrolling, and that's less enjoyable. It's, yes, I mean, we have 26,000 movies. Not all of them are going to be A+ home runs, and we wouldn't claim otherwise. But you spend an hour picking the 3 or 4 that you want to take home. And a lot of thought and choice went into that. And so there is a different kind of commitment there, and probably better results, because, you weighed your options.
Yeah, I think so. That's that's always what's missing for me when I stream things. If I'm streaming a movie, I mean, I stream plenty of TV shows, and that's the way that works now, and I get that. I never really bought TV shows on disc anyway, because I watch a show and I'm done with the show. Movies I like to rewatch more than TV, but there is that commitment of, like, okay, I have browsed my shelves, I have selected this, we've decided to sit down, have movie night. We're putting this thing in, and we're watching this. Like, this is our next 2 hours. And it's just not the same when you're on Netflix. And then, if you do have to pause the movie, hey, someone's going to go to the bathroom. And I paused a show on Amazon Prime the other day. I was watching The Boys, and it's like, all this information pops up. And it's like, well, here are the 4 actors, and here's the song that's playing. And do you want to listen to that song? Do you want to see what else Carl Urban has done for movie? And it's like, wow, like, I'm just trying to be, like, in this moment, and you're desperately trying to get me to click somewhere else so you can say I watched more and clicked more and watched more ads. And, like, it's a lot. It is exhausting sometimes. And that's why I find myself, like, I scroll through, and then I'm doing it for 10 minutes, and I give up, and I go upstairs and pick something out of the movie shelves. And I'm like, okay, this is why I have this. That, and the fact that when you do select something, you can't just do that. You don't have the personal interaction. You can't ask somebody else their opinion, but you also can't just read the back of the movie box, because if I click on movie X on Netflix, it immediately starts playing a trailer in my face. And it's like that. Sometimes that's the worst, because it's like, give me 5 seconds to read what the movie's about before you start throwing a trailer at me that's going to spoil half the movie. Like, that drives me nuts too.
I'm also someone, like, even before, like, I know a fair amount of people who work in film now, because I was a film programmer for so long, and met a lot of people along the way. But even before that, I enjoyed reading credits. It was another way to be, like, to learn and just be like, I recognize that editor or that, assistant director's name, that's interesting. And try doing that on most streaming services. You'll have to, jump for the remote faster than is humanly possible.
Oh yeah. You have 10 seconds before the next movie starts.
Yeah.
Most of the time they don't even show you the credits.
Yeah. Well, and you kind of hit on one of the other things I've seen change, from the tail end of, video rental, like circa 2010 to the present day, is that people kind of understand, just like, the Marvel movies don't rent very much from us. TV series don't very much either, even though we have a pretty nice selection, a fair amount of streaming shows don't get a physical media release, but like most of the prestige TV, we have all the HBO shows and, Breaking Bad and all these. And it's not like they don't rent, but just like the experience you're having, people know, okay, that's what streaming's good at. Like I could watch 8 hours of Breaking Bad without having to get up,
Yeah, no, it is. It's perfect for binge watching. It's why it became so big. I mean, that's what it was to begin with.
And it's so refreshing for me, because the fear I had in the back of my mind when we were organizing Beyond Video and reopening it was that, in about 2010 or so, the last time I was a regular at this place, Video Americaine, it was TV shows and new releases that were renting, and like Hollywood new releases. And so they have this director's wall where you can get, films by Francois Truffaut and, Wong Kar-wai and Claire Denis, and they're kind of sitting there collecting dust. Whereas, Sopranos, which is also great, but was flying off the shelf. Yeah. And I was kind of worried that we were going to open this thing, we were going to have a great collection, and that we would find that was still the case. And that's been the happiest surprise to me. I mean, so we have a 2-floor inventory, and to get to our director's room, or that like sort of cult horror room I mentioned, you have to go up the stairs, and like people walk right past me and they're up there in their favorite section, and maybe then after an hour upstairs, they come down and be like, oh, whoa, you also have Batman, huh? Okay. But yeah, they really dig deep into the collection, which is really fulfilling.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that's got to feel good about when you've amassed such a collection that people are actually going through it, and it's not the top 1% that rents everything. Yeah. It sounds like you have a pretty wide variety of stuff that goes out the door, which is awesome, because it does it builds the next generation of people who love the cult horror stuff, who are now going to go out of their way to watch X from Ty West, or something that is clearly aimed at that niche, and isn't sure it's not going to do well in theaters, but I loved it because it was right up my alley. Like it was. Oh yeah, what I wanted. Time with it. Yeah. I mean, it was great. It was one of the movies I was looking forward to the most, and like I think it was in theaters for like 2 weeks, and I've got a baby, and I was like, I never got out the door to even see this thing. I couldn't have even lined up a babysitter in the time that was in theaters. So it was crazy fast. But I love this idea that all these people in Baltimore are now discovering all these new movies in media because of you guys. It's super cool, and I do hope it catches on. Like I hope it catches on to other cities, and I mean, they can do this everywhere.
I really am hopeful that it will, and as like a word of encouragement to anyone who might have heard this and think, oh, could I do this? Like, people are very generous with their collections these days, and that takes all sorts of forms. I mean, you might have, recently, it comes from a moment of sadness, but an older gentleman passed away who had built a massive collection of silent and classic movies. Well, it was so his kids and everyone who was taking care of his estate, it was so much more meaningful for them to be able to put it to community worth than to give it to a Goodwill or get on eBay and try to sell them for $3 a piece or whatever,
Absolutely.
And then on the flip side, there are other people who are cleaning house. They want to get rid of their whole collections. And there are other people who are, 4K UHD addicts and will give you really expensive Blu-rays because they've already upgraded to, the new import from France that has a better print, So
guilty as charged.
Yeah. But I mean, there's just all these different avenues that you really just need to be willing to do the work and sift through all this stuff and say, okay, we got 700 copies of Lord of the Rings. Let's keep these two, and then let's build what else we have and keep collecting until it has, this holistic use, that it's a collection that people would want to come in and access. And you can get there surprisingly quickly.
So yeah, how did you get that first? It was 9,000 before there was Beyond Video, before there was like, how did that come together?
Yeah. We all put in items from our own collection and sort of, I had a bad Blu-ray habit as well back in that time, but I was kind of, and I wasn't sure this project was going to work out, but I was kind of spending a little more than I would have otherwise with the hope that eventually I can just hand these over to Beyond Video. And, I kept a few, I still got my Velvet box, possession, Blu-ray, but I gave most of my stuff, to the project. And so did, a pretty large collective of people who were originally involved. I mean, we've had, from the organizing stages of this to the present day is, 6 or 7 years. So we've had, people move, people get different jobs or lose interest. But there were a lot of people at that moment when Video Americaine was dying who were, very committed to seeing this next phase in. And, there were some nice little moments where, again, there was an estate of someone who had collected all the Criterion DVDs up until the point that they passed in like 2014 or 15. And one of my colleagues, Liz, who was very involved in the project at that point, found it and was able to buy the whole, 500 or so Criterion discs for a very reasonable price. So yeah, it was just, it was little turning points like that where we could sort of see it coming from a random assemblage of movies that were cool or were not cool into something that started to feel kind of comprehensive. And the other way you could go is maybe just trying to build a niche service. Like there's someone in the Twin Cities who is creating a cult film archive, and they're just trying, and they can define that broadly, but that might be everything from Shaw Brothers movies to the kind of stuff Vinegar Syndrome puts out. And so they don't have to worry about having Field of Dreams because that's not their purview, and having a collection of 500 films that are really awesome. Honestly, to calculate, if you have 500 curated films in different cult genres and eras, that might be just as hard to access on streaming as our 26,000, because,
absolutely.
Films get lost, man.
They do. No, they do. It's a big reason why I scoop this stuff up, and I love when I see the Arrows and the Vinegars and Synapse and Severin and Criterion and everybody out there, when they put stuff out, I scoop it up because I don't know when the next chance I'll be, when will I be able to get this again? It's nice they're doing it and preserving them too, and giving them new life. But you never know. Stuff gets lost for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, also in a market like Baltimore, like the best sort of emerging international films might be put out by like labels like Kino or Cinema Guild or Grasshopper, and very few markets except the biggest will have theatrical runs for that. So right. If you don't have a big personal budget, how are you ever going to see those movies without, a new breath of life into the concept of a video store?
Yeah, no, it's true. And I love it. I love the whole concept of what you guys are doing. The minute I heard about it, I was like, I need to have them on and talk to them because this is such a unique idea, but definitely one that I can see picking up steam. If I'm sure, like you said, there are plenty of people out there who would much rather give an estate or just clearing out a garage of DVDs, give it to a place like this versus trying to drop it at a Goodwill or sell it online. I mean, what are you going to make online selling DVDs? $1 a piece? Like, not worth it. Not worth your time. Yeah, you're much better off. And I hope someday, I've always said this, I told my wife, I'm like, if anything ever happens, make sure that all these movies go somewhere, go to use. I don't want to be the only person who's ever watched these discs.
And
make sure somebody else gets them.
I think most collectors come from that place where I have my knowledge base, I have my taste, and I'm collecting them for my own enjoyment. But
Yeah.
if you have 1,000 films, how many times are you really going to be able to watch every one of them? You're
No,
collecting
sure.
it with this sense of being part of the timeline and history of life of these movies.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if people do want to get in touch, I guess what's the best place? Where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, our website is beyondvideo.org. So you can use that as your main portal, or, for social media folks, we're on all the biggies. We're not very active on Facebook anymore, but
Don't blame
we're
you.
we're Beyond Video with an underscore after video on Twitter. So that's at Beyond Video _. And then our Instagram's different. Let me make sure I get fully accurate info on that. I think it's Beyond Video Be More.
And we'll put
Yep.
I'll put links. I'll drop links in the video description and podcast episode descriptions.
So those are the handles, and we're really responsive because every email sent us might be someone trying to donate that movie that's eluded us, or
Right.
somebody who wants to do a project like this. But I mean, we're doing this because it's fun, and please contact us if you have questions.
Yeah, definitely. And I noticed on your site too, if there's a list of, like you said, I think it's probably getting smaller by the day, but I think there were 20 of the most wanted DVDs. So listen, all you collectors out there, if you've got one of these, hook them up because they're looking for them. You could be the hero of the day. So I'm sure these are floating around somewhere in somebody's collection that's listening to this. So go check out their site, check out what they're looking for, and maybe you can be that savior who knocks one off the list.
Yeah, and if you're not a rare movie collector, still take a look. On the flip side also maintain a most common. There's
Sure.
Cheech and Chong movies we need. Maybe you've got it sitting on your shelf. So right now it looks like we don't have a DVD for Poltergeist 2, even though we do have the Blu-ray. Be nice to have it on DVD.
Do you have Poltergeist 3?
I'll have to check.
Because that's my favorite.
Yeah, I think the Blu-ray might be 2 and 3 bundled together, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, there you go. There's a whole list, and I'm sure.
Yeah.
I know the people. We got 92,000 and counting on YouTube that are watching these videos and podcasts. I mean, somebody's gonna have them. So if you got them laying around, I couldn't find a better place right now than Beyond Video. So
I appreciate that.
Get in touch with them and shoot them out there because they can use them. So I appreciate you coming on. This was fun. This is super cool. I'll definitely be in touch and seeing what I can do to support, and hopefully someday get down and check it out because
I'd love to show you around.
Yeah, it looks awesome just from the pictures. So I got to get down there and check it out someday.
Yeah, please do.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot for your interest, man. Really appreciate it.
No, of course, and I'm glad you could come on and spend the time. I really appreciate it. So I'll be in touch with you. I'm sure we'll do some more, and I'll catch everybody on the other side of the interview. So thanks. All right, everyone. So that was our interview with Eric Hatch. As we mentioned at the end there, if you want to check out Beyond Video, you can go to their website. You can check out their Twitter and Instagram accounts, and I'll also link Eric's Twitter account if you want to follow him as well. So it's a really cool project. I am super hopeful that other cities can replicate this. I know I would definitely help out if they could get one going near me in the Boston area. I love what he's doing. It's such a cool idea. And it was really interesting when I got to talk to him, just how unique and diverse their community is and the types of rentals that are going out the door and how that's opening up so many new movies and boutique labels to an entirely new generation of potential collectors and movie lovers. So it's great to see, and I think what they're doing is awesome, and I hope you guys can support them, whether it's if you live in Baltimore, certainly go check them out, but like Eric said, they're always looking for donations of any sort. DVDs are still their main format. That's what most people watch, but if you have DVDs, Blu-rays, if you're upgrading things to 4K, it's a great place to donate. You can get your copies in a library so other people can check them out. It's a really cool idea, and I fully support what they're doing, so I hope you guys do too. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, though. Make sure you are following along on YouTube, subscribed, and following along on Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening, so you never miss an episode. This was episode 13, so I'm doing a full run season of 15 episodes. So we have 2 episodes left. Next week, we are talking to Ben Scrivens. He is the founder of Fright Rags, which is a company I really like, horror movie merchandise company, but he's also an avid physical media collector and enthusiast as well. So we're going to talk movie merch and horror movies and dive into what he likes as a collector. And he'll be a really cool guy to talk to, somebody who's literally built a business around his love for horror movies. So it'll be an exciting talk. And if you guys know Fright Rags, he'll have lots to say about licensing and what's going on in horror movies in that business. So stay tuned for that one next week. Make sure you follow us on social media so you never miss an episode. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. So thanks for watching or listening wherever you are. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll talk to you soon.
Coming soon. Be sure to subscribe to the Films at Home podcast using your favorite app so you don't miss another episode. And while you're there, don't forget to rate and review this podcast, which helps us out tremendously. You can also help support us by watching our short form content over on YouTube and TikTok by searching Films at Home. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at films_at_home. The intro and outro were created by Elin Osborne. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.